Well, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you may be joining us. We are thrilled that you are here. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging the Indigenous culture of Missouri. Washington University and the city of St. Louis are located on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Osage Nation, Missouri, and the Line Confederacy. We honor them as we live, work, and study at WashU. Let me be among the first to welcome you and your family to the WashU family. We are so happy to have your student a part of the class of 2025. Can't believe it, 2025, it's great. My name is Emily Almas. I am the Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Admissions here at WashU. I'm joined by some of my fantastic campus colleagues, and together we are excited to answer your questions and tell you more about what to expect in the weeks and months ahead. Your young person may have already decided that Washington University is their next home, and we are thrilled and excited, or they may have some decision making ahead of them in the coming weeks. Either way, and wherever they may be on their college admissions journey, know that we think they are a perfect match for WashU. Please feel free to make use of the question and answer box over the next hour or so. I'm joined by some of my fantastic admissions colleagues, and together we're looking forward to answering your questions. We'll also leave some time in this session for question and answer at the end. And now I'm going to turn over to some of my campus colleagues and ask them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about what they do here at WashU. We'll go in alphabetical order, and I'm going to start with my colleague, Catherine. Catherine, can you go first?
Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Pei. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the First Year Center at Washington University in St. Louis. And in the First Year Center, we support your new students and you as their families and their tradition to WashU. So we oversee orientation, a year-long peer mentorship program, parent-family orientation, parent-family weekend, among other initiatives. And we're so excited to have you here today.
Wonderful, and thanks. Kawana.
Hi, my name is Kawana Leggett, and I currently serve as the interim dean of students. We'll be in that role until June, and in July I go back to my permanent position, which I'm very excited to talk more about. I am the executive director for Residential Life, and Residential Life is an amazing office that supports our undergraduate residential students. The Office of Residential Life provides safe environment that encourages learning and personal growth. Our incoming class will have the opportunity to live on the South 40 in our residential colleges, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but the South 40 is an amazing experience for our first and sophomore students to come in and really be amongst their own small community. It has its own fitness center, dining center, technology, meeting rooms, and many other amenities to make it feel like home. Obviously, this year has been a little bit different for our residential students. We've been supporting our residential campus through a number of great opportunities for them to really gather and get to know their residential communities. Right now, we have a lower density on campus, but we're very excited for the incoming class. We're actually going to increase our density for our residential students. So excited to tell you a little bit more about the opportunities within Residential Life.
Thanks, Kawana. Kirk.
Thanks, parents. Welcome. Glad to have you with us this afternoon, and appreciate your attendance in this meeting. My name is Kirk Dewar. I have the privilege of overseeing the health and wellness units, the ones that are student-facing in student affairs, which means that I oversee the Student Health Center, the Counseling Center, our care managers, and our relationship and sexual violence prevention group. We obviously been very busy this last year trying to make sure that we're coordinating all things to do with COVID and making sure that we can keep your students as healthy and safe as they can be as we try and encourage them to be as academically productive as they can be. So we worked very closely with Residential Life and with several other departments trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to attend to how the science is directing us, stay in contact with our medical experts from infectious disease and our campus health experts to be able to keep your students safe.
Great. And Mark.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Gamimura Jimenez. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Dean of the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. In addition to the CDI, as we refer to it, I also have responsibility over the Office of International Students and Scholars, as well as our Office of Religious, Spiritual, and Ethical Life.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be hearing from all of these great campus partners in just a little bit, but I wanted to tell a little bit of an update from the admissions and financial aid front. So over the next few weeks and really months, the entire admissions and aid teams are here along with the entire WashU community to support you and your student. And I wanted to note a few different programs and opportunities that you might encourage your student to take advantage of and make use of to learn about all WashU has to offer, as well as meet their new classmates. The first that I would point to is Bearbase. Now, this is an admitted student network just for members of the class of 2025. Your students should have already received an invitation to join this site. They may already be on the site, but either way, I hope you encourage them to make use. They can learn about upcoming events and programs, meet fellow class of 2025 members, meet current students, faculty, staff. There's a whole community waiting there to answer their questions and get to know them better. So encourage your student to make use of that site, I hope. I'll also note that every Thursday we send your student an email with information about events coming up in the week ahead. So have them keep an eye out for that. And speaking of events, we have a very robust schedule of mock classes, webinars, information sessions, even fun social events like trivia. Students can find all of the information about these programs on their admitted student portal known as the Pathway. That's also where they saw their admissions decision if they're looking for that information. So definitely hope they'll join us at one of the many exciting programs coming up. They probably have already joined us at a program so far this April. We know that some students and families are interested in visiting campus. And so we've developed a special 2-hour outdoors only visit experience. It's called WashU Walkthrough, and it's for admitted student and one guest. We're really trying to prioritize public health and safety. And so I thank you and your family for helping join with us in abiding by the WashU Walkthrough guidelines. All of the information about taking part in this program is available on the admitted student portal or the Pathway, including how you can sign up in advance. You do need to pre-register, and I hope you'll appreciate that we're only allowing visitors on campus as part of this special program. So thank you for cooperating with us in that. We're really looking forward to our upcoming on-campus commencement for our graduating students. So prioritizing public health and safety is always something on top of our minds. If you have any questions or your student has any questions about the campus visit or getting more information or registering for the WashU walkthrough, reach out to us, give us a call, send us an email. We are definitely happy to help. We also know that many students and families are not going to visit campus this spring, and so we have a robust schedule of virtual experiences and virtual campus tours that you can take part in right from your computer screen or even your phone. So definitely many different ways you can experience our campus, whether in St. Louis or in another part of the world. We've also developed opportunities for your student to meet with their admissions officer, a financial aid counselor, even a current student. Your student can sign up for any of those experiences on their WashU Pathway or mid-student portal. So just send your student there, or of course, any questions or concerns, send us an email, give us a call. We're very happy to help anytime about any topic. All right, a lot of information from admissions and financial aid, but I do want to turn to some of the pressing questions you likely have, and I'm going to start with my colleague, Catherine. What happens after a student decides to enroll at WashU? Can you tell us a little bit more about the first year experience, maybe some more about the first year center, and even bare beginnings, what we call orientation here at the university?
Sure. I'll start with what happens after a student accepts to Washington University. around between May 1st and May 15th, we will start communicating, the First Year Center will start communicating with your student directly and with you directly as well. So for our new students, they'll receive a newsletter called the Bear Bulletin, and for families, you'll get Family Ties. In the summer, those come out once a month. In the fall and spring semesters, they're every other month. And those bulletins will explain communications, including a before you arrive checklist with items for your student to do and complete over the summer to ensure they have a smooth start. That before you arrive checklist includes if the student needs to take any placement exams in order to register for certain classes. So if your student's been taking a language in high school, so for example, I took Spanish in high school, and if I wanted to continue that at Washington University, I would need to take a placement exam if I don't have an AP or an IB credit to let the university know what level should I take. And so you could get placed in to introductory Spanish or much higher level Spanish classes based on that placement exam. So that checklist will take your student through those items they need to do. So that comes, as I said, in those newsletters that go to you and your student. And it also comes in a postcard because we do think a few reminders is helpful because there are quite a few to-do items on that list. Orientation at WashU has 3 components. The first one is Get Your Bearings, which is our online orientation. We have a summer engagement series that happens later in the summer where your student will get a phone call from their Washington University Student Associate, or WUSA. That is their peer mentor, who's an upper division student, will work with your student from the summer all the way to the end of their first year. So they'll get a phone call from a peer. We'll invite them to some affinity community events. So if you have a student of color, a student who's a first generation college student, they might choose to join some of our summer engagement sessions in order to meet students who have similar backgrounds from themselves. It's also a time when they can get to know their residential community because at that point they'll have their housing assignment. And then some of our student group interest groups will start to let students know about the opportunities available to them. And then we end our orientation program with what we call Fall Welcome, and that happens in August, right before classes begin. I know many of you have questions. I see them in the chat asking about move-in and the Fall Welcome schedule. Move-in dates and the schedule are currently being finalized and will be available in early May. The university is working closely with the COVID monitoring team on campus, as well as St. Louis County Health Department, to monitor the ever-changing COVID-19 environment and making sure that we are going to follow all appropriate protocols to make sure that it is safe for your student to engage as much as possible in person while maintaining all of the protocols that the CDC and our county health department require. At this time, I don't know if the family portion of Fall Welcome will be in person. For our first year students, I can say that our intention is to have as much in person as possible. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to have small group meetings in person, that they'll be able to engage in our campus facilities like recreation, but I don't have those specific details about dates today. And I know you really need them. We are working diligently over the next 2 weeks to make sure that we have those details outlined, and we will put them on the new Student and the Families websites. And I'm going to put in the chat for you those 2 websites for you to refer back to. They're great resources, and they also outline those before you arrive items that your student will need to do. They don't need to do anything today. Wait until you get those initial emails from us in May. But once those start coming every month in the summer, there are a few items that your student should stay on top of in order to make sure that they're prepared. And that includes making sure that they can register for classes this summer.
Thanks, Catherine. I know, Kawana, we're going to have continued questions because I see them already coming in, but I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about this past year, how the university responded to COVID-19 and what students and families should expect for the coming year. Anything you would also add about student life or residential life that you think families might be wondering for incoming students?
Thanks, Emily. I get so excited reading the questions in the chat box. And so I had to take the chat box off because I love answering the questions via the chat box. This year we've really had to be innovative in our practice of building residential community. We have, back in July 31st, we made the decision that all students were going to live in single spaces. And that was just one, due to the guidance from the CDC and our medical experts on campus. As we've progressed, we've also made other accommodations like quarantine and isolation housing, working closely with the Habit Health and Wellness team and our COVID monitoring team to build those infrastructures. Our students do have regular testing that happens. Residential life students are required to go through that testing, and if they miss their test at any point, we actually follow up with them and could potentially remove their access. And so we've had to be a bit more restrictive in terms of a number of our policies and procedures related to gatherings. And so we don't have guests coming in of buildings that they don't live in. And so this year has been more restrictive. Clearly, with the more availability of the vaccine and changes in our campus impact in terms of our COVID numbers, we're hopeful by next year we will be a little bit less restrictive. We have gotten approval to utilize double modern rooms and also continue to have single rooms in our traditional spaces. We've done that to really have an average bathroom ratio of 4 students to 1 bathroom as much as possible. We are still, as Catherine has shared, working with our COVID monitoring team on a number of big decisions like requirements for the vaccine, also related to whether or not we'll do entry testing, which also impacts our move-in days. We are working closely with our housing staff to ensure that our housing application, which is, you should have gotten an email for a couple, maybe last week, giving you more information about when that's going to be due. But we know that questions are going to come up about the vaccine requirement and what that means as you complete your housing application. But we would ask that you are patient in terms of understanding that we are still monitoring this situation. But when you're doing your housing application, I would encourage you to rank your preferences with your housing with number 1 being your top choice. Some of our traditional buildings, again, will have single rooms. And there was a question about what's the percentage that you would get a single room. If you want a single room, you really have to put preference as traditional, because that will be the only buildings that will be single space. You also have the ability to request mutual roommates, and that will be in the housing application as well. And so if you know someone, it has to be a mutual roommate. So make sure that whoever you're requesting is also requesting you. And we have not made any decisions on policies in terms of guest policies, but one of the things that Catherine and our Office of Student Conduct and Habit Health and Wellness did was develop what we call the WashU Pledge. And the WashU Pledge is an opportunity for our students to really take ownership and keeping our community safe. And so every student has to go through and complete the WashU Pledge, and also a COVID Canvas course that educates them on what it means to be within our community and adhere to our public health standards. We'll still have that as a part of our community onboarding, and that will tie hand in hand about what it means to really be on campus during COVID-19.
Thanks, Kawana. And I know lots of great questions will continue to come in. And when we have space for our question and answer, we'll try to get to as many of these questions as we can. All right, Kirk, so sort of changing gears in some ways, but not in others, sort of from your realm, how do we support students? What do you think families should know? And lots of questions coming in around vaccination and vaccination policies. Can you speak more to just health and wellness at the university as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. This is obviously a really big and important time in students' life as they make this transition from high school to college, and this change that they're going through that we call individuation obviously is a really critical period where they take all the information that they've learned from you and apply it in real life and figure out how to be able to navigate the world largely on their own, which for many students is a new thing and can be kind of nervous making, because there's a lot of things that they might not know how to do. They might not know how to navigate a bunch of things. So part of what we try and do in health and wellness is make sure that not only are we working with students to be able to keep them healthy, but educating them about how to be able to navigate this process. So a couple things that I would suggest to parents as you prepare for your students to go off to college. One, make sure that you're in as much communication with them as they seem to think is important. And by that, what I mean is over the next year, you're going to set some pretty important standards on how to engage with them. And we had a couple students, and I like to share this story one time that we're on a panel, and one of the parents asked the student, how often do you speak to your mom? And the student said, oh, all the time. And as the parent queried just a little bit further, the student said, yeah, I speak to her like every month. And so there may be a difference between what your students expect to be able to communicate with and how often you want to be able to communicate, and to find a healthy natural balance between those, and also to be in a place where you're supportive and listening. One of the reasons why that's so critical is because the ambiguity that going off to college already created is hard and difficult for students to know what to do. But doing that in the midst of a COVID environment creates all sorts of different concerns for students and the worries. So someone in one of the questions mentioned the mental health impact of COVID, and certainly we're doing some research, we're attending to the literature, trying to make sure that we are being as responsive as possible to those issues, because certainly it does have an impact. We're well aware that 86% of people suggest that COVID's had a significant or moderate impact on their mental health, and especially on their stress. So a lot of the adjustments that we've made with regard to how we're operating that realm has to do with how we can engage with them. So with regard to health, more particularly, the popular question in the chat is about the potential requirement for COVID moving into this upcoming school year. What we know is that Dartmouth and Georgetown and Notre Dame and several of our other colleagues and peers have already stated that they're going to be requiring the vaccine. I would see that that is probable for us, but there's a number of factors that our COVID monitoring and team is still taking into account. And so at this point, we've not yet mandated it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if we did. Part of the reasons why they have been looking at things are things like the transition of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, making sure that if we are to require it, that all students have access and availability to the vaccine, to make sure that if we have that, we also have the infrastructure to be able to support tracking that and following through, and a number of other things. So while I see it likely, the COVID monitoring team has not made that determination just yet, and we're looking forward to that. The last thing I would say, kind of another inside tip, is that as you prepare your students to be able to come around their health issues, they're used to being able to follow your health advice at home. And I would recommend that you prepare a little, not just a first aid kit, but kind of a sick kit, if you will. Whatever medications you take for colds and flus, a thermometer, tweezers, a bunch of things that other students might not have thought to be able to put into their kit. And that way, when they're maybe not feeling well, you can refer them to the same medication that they're used to taking at home as they call you up and tell you they're sick. It comes in really, really handy for students. And then perhaps lastly, please take a look at, there was a question about our university healthcare plan. If your students are not insured through you, or you take a look at the plan that we've been able to leverage with United Healthcare and find that it does a better job for you, please make sure that you're reaching out to the websites there. We've got some great folks here on campus to be able to answer questions and make sure that we can get your students as insured through our policies as you'd like them to be, or rely on your healthcare to be able to cover some of their needs. So thank you.
Thanks, Kirk. And Mark, I'm curious if you could tell us more about the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, the work of the CDI, and the work you and your colleagues do generally to support students on campus and student life.
Sure. So the CDI is a place where we really embrace three major themes of our student experience. They are identity, education, and advocacy. We know that our students come to us from a wide range of experiences and backgrounds, and that in this space, their identities are either challenged or they are confirmed, but they're also being developed. And we feel that the work that we do provides students to kind of embrace and understand the intersectionality of their identities, the intersections of those experiences that they've had with others who may share an identity from other parts of the country or from a similar social background. And in doing that, we really think about how education outside the classroom plays a role with panels, workshops, one-on-one kinds of dialogue opportunities, focused conversations, in addition to training opportunities for students to learn in more detail and depth on a particular topic. The third area around advocacy is, our students they come to us as leaders who want to make a difference, not just on our campus, but in their communities. And, once they leave here, want to continue to do that work. And so as they experience the university, there are times when things need to be addressed in terms of a policy or a process. And we kind of facilitate a space for students' voices to get elevated in some administrative conversations, but also provide pathways for change on our campus. There's a couple other offices I also work with or oversee in my area, which is Office of Religious, Spiritual, and Ethical Life. And a lot of times our students come to college and they haven't found the space in which they can continue their faith journey and continue to build other connections around their spiritual and ethical experiences on campus. And so we provide a space for students to connect with each other. We have an incredible program called the Interfaith Fellows Program. A lot of our students engage in that program, which is sponsored by the Interfaith Youth Corps. And so we also have just received a grant this past about 10 days ago to build out Faith in the Vaccine ambassadors around the country for us to kind of really increase confidence and support understanding of the vaccine in our students' communities. So students are connected, we know, to faith backgrounds, their churches, their different community centers or social groups, and that in those spaces there may be hesitancy about taking the vaccine. And so we've been given this grant to support students to kind of talk through different ideas and opportunities to increase folks being vaccinated. I'll say this last piece here is that students come in and hang out in the CDI. It's in the first floor of the Danforth University Center. We say call it the Duck, the DUC. But then there's all these duck things that we do, cool things that we do at the Duck. I have this awesome tie that I didn't wear it today, but I've been waiting for us to be back in person because we have these themes around, and it has a bunch of ducks on it. Anyway, one day I'll get to wear when we're back in person. But students come into our space and they hang out. We have a TV and some couches, all these things that sound kind of like a different world from the one we're in currently. But it's a really welcoming space in which students can kind of be themselves and just hang out and talk through issues that they're having. And I can't tell you how many times we're either having a snack or a coffee or something in that space, and a student will say, yeah, I'm kind of having an issue with this. And I'll say, oh, you should talk to Travis, or you should talk to so-and-so, or, oh, did you meet this student? We're gonna, so, we also create those spaces of connection as well. So I'll leave it there, and I'll look forward if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Thanks so much. And actually, one of my favorite campus traditions is Duck and Donuts, where once a month, students can stop by, or whomever, doesn't have to be a student, can stop by for a donut or a breakfast pastry and some coffee on their way to class on a Friday morning, and not just feel our community, which is so important here at WashU, but also collect little ducks with different costumes and outfits on. So speaking of the Duck, I appreciate you mentioning the Danforth University Center or the Duck. I think we're going to have some time now for some general questions, and I've noticed they've been coming in, and thank you. If you have a question, please feel free to continue to use the question and answer box Our admissions colleagues are hoping to get to as many as they can. If for some reason we aren't able to get to your question this afternoon, know that you can always reach out to us, the admissions office, and we can also try to reach out to you and get your question answered. So lots of questions today about housing, about different housing options and choices and the process. And I'm wondering, Kwana and Catherine, feel free to chime in too, of course. Anything you would share, where should family members direct their student to learn more about housing, and ideas and thoughts for how students can navigate WashU's housing process?
You know, Catherine probably gets this question even more than our office from our incoming students and parents. One of the most exciting things that we've been able to create this academic year, given that we haven't been able to do our traditional tours, we've created some virtual spaces so that you can actually see some of the opportunities that we have on campus. And I put the link in the chat box so you can take a virtual tour. And if you have a chance to come on campus working with the missions, we've been able to set up a mock room space in one of our more public areas. But it looks, I was there just last week, and it looks absolutely just like a room. They've done an incredible job at that. In terms of what you would do in your housing application, you actually have the opportunity to rank your preferences with housing, with one being your top choice. And one of the things with our housing application, you would be able to rank what if you want modern versus traditional. It's very important that you know that our modern spaces will be double occupants. And so we've been able to get approval through our COVID monitoring team that students are able to live in modern doubles. If you are interested in a single room, that would be in our traditional spaces. And one of the questions that you may have is, what's the difference between modern and traditional? I would encourage you to go to our virtual housing tour so that you actually can see what those spaces are. For our moderns, most of them are suite style, which means that two students are living in one bedroom with a bathroom in between, and then there's another two bedroom with two students with that. So that means 4 students are sharing one bathroom. For our traditional spaces, you would get a single room, and we have more communal style bathrooms, which means that there's a common bathroom on the floor, and that's why we're trying to ensure that the density is low within our traditional spaces. And so you have the opportunity to rank that. And again, I want to remind students that there's an opportunity for you to put on your housing application some personal preferences that you may have to tell us a little bit more about your living habits so that we can help pair students together. You also have the opportunity to create mutual roommates, as I said earlier, just ensuring that that student would also put you down as a roommate choice too.
Great. Thanks. I see some questions coming in about allergies and dining restrictions. And Kirk, I'm wondering if you could just could we take a step back and first talk about how WashU works with students with our Disability Resources Center, but also address how a student with a need for an accommodation or allergies or dining restrictions might navigate our campus as well.
Yeah, certainly. So we have here at WashU an office we call Disabilities Resources that is staffed by individuals who are very familiar with making accommodations for students. So if your student is coming to the university and has a wide range of need for accommodation, they can submit largely through online portals information from their physicians or other qualifying entities to be able to document that history. Our folks then take a look at that and then return with whatever accommodations those students might be afforded. In the case where it might include some food or other related issues, certainly our dining hall and dining services try to make some very specific accommodations for students and label food to where they know what it is that they're eating, and so they don't inadvertently eat something that they otherwise might have a reaction to. So that's certainly a prominent issue that students are attending to. But again, Disabilities Resources kind of has a broad range of accommodations that they look at. Now, something to be aware of is that the accommodation process, although a student may have had or may not have had something in high school, it's almost as though they're coming through, starting the process over again. So certainly they do make the accommodations, but sometimes they will tweak it based on the evolving needs of the student and the evolving issues that they're dealing with. So sometimes that changes from what it is that they had in high school. So something to be aware of. One of the questions that also came up, Emily, I'm going to jump in and answer another one. When students are getting vaccinated, typically we have had a portal that's been open on the Habit Health and Wellness site to be able to submit your vaccination card. Right now, part of our anticipating and kind of gearing up for the fall is we're revamping that database. And so students can submit to WashU their vaccine card, but they can do it through email as a way to be able to get that information to us. So in the chat, I'm going to post the page that you can go to be able to read the information that we have there and to be able to submit that. So if they want to do it before July 1, they can send us an email with that. If they want to do it after July 1st, then certainly they can upload it through the portal that we'll have available at that point.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. I've seen a number of questions come through about advising, about classes. And Catherine, I know you are a first year advisor. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about advising at WashU and things you think that students and families may want to know about academic life as well.
So in addition to working in the First Year Center, I'm also a four-year academic advisor in the College of Arts and Sciences, but I'm familiar with all of the undergraduate divisions. And so for our students, when they register for classes in their for their fall semester, they first will be assigned an advisor from their college in early June. And in early June, the dean of each undergraduate college will contact your student, say, your advisor is Catherine or any of the other 50 plus advisors in the four colleges. After being assigned their advisor, they'll receive information about what their next steps are. So I mentioned earlier, they might need to take placement exams. They'll have information about how to review course listings. Each of the schools does this slightly differently, but usually there's like an online video to watch to say, this is a large overview of our curriculum, watch this short video, look through course listings. Think about your advisor will send some questions and say, like, so what are the classes you took in high school that you loved? What are the classes you took in high school that maybe you never want to take again? What are the things that you never had an opportunity to explore but sound really interesting to you because your high school didn't offer those as an opportunity? So a student will go through all of those different resources, and then they will have a time assigned to them to speak to their advisor. Typically that's over Zoom now because that's what most of us are using. It can also be a phone call. And for our students who are in time zones that just aren't conducive to a live conversation, that can be over email, but we really prefer Zoom or a phone call first. So after meeting with their advisor, the student will then have a registration worksheet. So that they'll have look through course listings, they'll have told their advisor what they're interested in studying, they'll have a curriculum overview, they'll work with the advisor then to have a registration worksheet that will say, typically that's between 4 and 6 classes. I'm saying between 4 and 6 classes because some of our classes are 3 credits and some of them are as many as 5. And so if you had a couple of 5-credit classes, you would not be taking 6 courses. If you are taking, a 1-credit class, then you might have 6 courses. So after that registration worksheet is given the sign off by your advisor, the student will then be assigned a time to register. For this year, those dates are in mid-July, July 14th through 16th, and the student will have an assigned time. So my time might be July 14th at 9 a.m. Central Time. So I open my WashU portal on my assigned date and time, and then I just go into my registration worksheet and I click add course, add course, add course until I have a full schedule. And then I have my first semester of classes. And so students will not be selecting courses without conversation with their advisor. They will have a customized schedule that is unique to their course of study that's appropriate for them. For our students who are on a specific track, perhaps like pre-health or pre-law, their advisor will also talk to them about what that will look like specifically for our students who are on a pre-health track, regardless of what division they're studying in, because we have students studying architecture and pre-health as well, they will be assigned a pre-health advisor in their sophomore year. And so they'll immediately be placed on a listserv if they have indicated on their admissions application they're interested in a healthcare career. And if they decide later on, their advisor could help them to get on that listserv. So they'll start getting emails as early as fall 2021 about the pre-health curriculum, and then they'll have an actual pre-health advisor in addition to their regular four-year advisor to make sure that they're taking the right classes, and will help them eventually to put together their application for medical, dental, veterinary school.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. And as mentioned, students are taking courses across the university. As Catherine noted, most students at WashU do more than just major in one thing. So there are plenty of opportunities to explore, have your student explore their interests. And we know those interests will evolve and change too throughout their time on our campus. So that is definitely something exciting. Some additional questions coming in. I see there's some questions about meal plans. Kawana, could you spend just a little bit of time talking about meal plans and how students select and what kind of dining options that there are here on campus?
Certainly. So I was actually just typing the answer to one of the questions. Meal plans are required. And if students have any dietary restrictions, the Dining Services has an amazing dietitian that works closely with students on any restrictions. And I'll put her contact information in the chat box. One of the things that our Dining Services does an amazing job is really catering to students in terms of understanding one-on-one what restrictions that they may have so that they can really work with our students. But in terms of the actual how you would sign up, that's actually a part of the housing application. And so when you complete your housing application, you will select the type of meal plan that you would be interested in. And I'll put in the chat box where you can find more information about the dining options. But again, it is required, and our dining service partners are amazing and really work closely with students who have any dietary restrictions.
Great. Some other questions have come in, questions about specific campus facilities and if they will be open this fall. Know that public health and safety is guiding all that we do. And so the university is hoping and planning for as normal a fall as possible. But of course, that will be guided by what is safe and healthy for the community. So expect further details. And as the summer months pass along and we get closer to fall, more details about what precisely will be open, when, and how for students. But Chancellor Martin has shared with our current students and families his goal and our community's goal to have as normal as possible within a safe and healthy environment for students to enjoy facilities on our campus. So specific details still TBD, but know that as feasible as possible, all of our community facilities we're hoping to share with students as much as we can. There have been questions too, I see, about placement exams. I believe Catherine and Kawana may have mentioned placement exams earlier. Lots of great information on our First Year Center website, but expect those to be electronic, virtual over the summer for students. So we will not be in person on campus this summer. We'll be electronic and virtual.
And they've always been electronic and virtual. That's not a COVID thing. So they're always on.
But no need to worry about taking those in person. There's a great question here about internship and career opportunities, and I will start, and I invite others on the panel who wish to jump in to add to that. We have a variety of career centers here at the university, that work with students. In addition to a four-year advisor that Catherine was speaking to and the departmental major advisor that a student has, they have a career advisor who works with them to identify career opportunities, if they're interested in pursuing an internship, where they might go and do that, connections between alumni or employers and current students, a wealth of opportunities. They also have really fantastic statistics on their websites. You can actually go to the Career Center website and get all sorts of details about what WashU students do when they're done, where they go, what industries they enter. It's really great. We can put a link in the chat for you, but definitely definitely encourage you to check that out. Anything on the career and or internship front that any panelists want to chime in on, add to that? All right. All right. Some additional questions coming in about required classes. Catherine, are there any required classes that students should be thinking about?
There's only one class at WashU that most of our students take, and it's called college writing. And I say most, about 97% of Washington University students take college writing. There are a handful of students in the McKelvey School of Engineering who will take an exam to comp out of that course. Across the university, though, like as a whole, there are not required courses. Each academic division, though, does have specific requirements. So all of our students in art and architecture are going to take drawing 1 because that's essential to being an artist or an architect. All of our students in engineering have certain math requirements for each of the majors. And so, for example, if I'm a biomedical engineering student, I have to take biomedical engineering 100 in my first year. If I'm a business student, I will take management 100, but those aren't classes that carry over. And then for our, to everyone, right? So like if I'm not in business, I'm not taking management 100. If I'm not a biomedical engineering student, I'm not taking BME 100. For our arts and sciences students, we don't have specific courses required other than that college writing course. Instead, we have distribution requirements. So we want all of our students in arts and sciences to take natural science and math courses. We want them all to take social science courses, humanities courses, language and cultural diversity courses, but the student gets to choose those and they'll work with their advisor to make sure that over their 4 years, they're meeting those requirements and they don't have to take them all up front. I have students who are seniors, they're in their last semester and they're right now choosing to take their writing intensive course. And that is very common and appropriate. No one's behind. It's just we use a much more flexible curriculum at WashU, particularly in arts and sciences.
Great. I see questions coming in about City of St. Louis and safety. I'm happy to start, and then I might ask my colleague Mark to add a few words too. St. Louis is a great place to be. It's a great place to be a college student. It's a great place to be an adult. It is a vibrant and growing and historic city. It is a medium-sized city. If you're less familiar with St. Louis, as a medium-sized city, it is a city. So we have to be cognizant of one's awareness of one's surroundings and being in a city. But it is a great place to live and to be. And we are really excited to be in St. Louis, Washington University in St. Louis. We have a variety of resources for students and the community surrounding us here in St. Louis and St. Louis County that help promote a culture of well-being and safety. Anything you would add, Mark, to that?
I would say that, we are on a campus that is very, it's similar to a lot of other campuses located in metro areas. And we have some cool things I think are important for our students to know. One is that we have something called Bear Patrol with students who are, sorry, my dog, I don't know if you can hear my dog is howling every time I talk, starts wanting to talk to you, is that, when you're moving around campus, that you can call someone to kind of escort you from one part of campus to another. I think it's really important that there's that option. The other is called WashU Safe, and it's an app that you put on your phone, and it's kind of like a mobile safety device. And I think it's one that I've been familiar with at a number of different campuses that has had a lot of really high-end effectiveness, I think, for our students. And also, if I'm not mistaken, our families can also be connected in with that app. So you can let your whoever your contact is know you're moving from one part of campus to another or walking from here to there. And they can track you as you move. So I think those two things are really key and good to know.
And I also add, just from the residential perspective, as you all know, first year students live on our South 40 campus. The South 40 is actually also where our campus police is stationed. Every residential community has 24-hour restrictive access. Only students who have access for their card are allowed in the buildings. And Mark has shared a number of the amazing resources that are provided by the university. Actually live within walking distance of campus, and so safety is certainly on my mind, and ensuring that our students are in a safe and well-maintained space. The university also provides what we call neighborhood liaisons that live within the community outside of campus too. We also have neighborhood patrols that are not only just on campus, but within the proximity of campus too. So as Mark and Emily have shared, we are in a city. As someone who's lived in Manhattan and lived in Berkeley, California, I can say that the things that we experience are no different than those areas as well. And so we work closely with our campus police and our students to really ensure that we're communicating with our students when there may be any incidents, and also ensuring that we're educating our students about ways that we can help ensure that our community is taking safe measures to look after one another as well.
And St. Louis is just also a great place to be a student. I can't help but put a plug in for the St. Louis Zoo, one of my favorite places in St. Louis. Right across from our campus is Forest Park, which is one of the largest urban parks in the country, home to the St. Louis Zoo, the Science Center, the History Museum, and the Art Museum, all of which are free and open to all. We even have classes that go and do part of their coursework in these spaces as well. So much to do in and around our campus. Definitely a great place to be as well. All right, I see some questions about orientation coming in. As Catherine noted, as soon as we have more up-to-date information, we will share it with you, we promise. So stay tuned for more information and details on orientation, but it will be coming as soon as we have some finalized information to share with you there. Catherine, as students have questions over the next few months, where should parents direct their students? If they have questions in advance of the fall, where's a good place to get more information?
Absolutely. So those websites, newstudents.worcester.edu and families.worcester.edu that I put in the chat, I think they're the first two links in the chat. Those are both the best places for our students and our families to look up most of the information that we've discussed today. Actually, we have links to all of the websites that have been discussed in our resources section. It goes through those checklists. If a student has a question, in general, we encourage them to reach out to our office over the summer, and I'll put our contact information in here as well. And then the university has, it's not a 1-800, I think it's a 1-844 number, but we have a toll-free number for families as well, and that directs to our office. While we are the first year center, we actually are the parent and family office for the university as well, and we work with families through their whole, students' entire undergraduate career. And so we can be a place for both students and for families to reach out, and I'll put that contact information in the chat for everyone.
Wonderful. I've seen some questions come through about financial aid. If your student has a question about their financial aid award or about affording WashU, or any questions about financial aid, know that you can reach out to Student Financial Services, and we can get their direct phone number and email information, contact information in the chat for you. But feel free to encourage your student to reach out, or you can reach out to your student's financial aid counselor as well. We have just a few minutes left before we have to close. Kirk, could you give just a few more comments about health insurance and student health insurance at the university? Anything you would want students and families to know as they're going into this process? You're still muted, Kirk. I'm sorry.
Yep, I'm there now. So I just posted, I was one step behind on both muting and posting some student health information in the chat there. So you can go to that website and take a look at. So again, just to be reiterating what I alluded to earlier, The student health insurance is not required if you have your own insurance, but we do have a pretty good plan that we've been able to leverage through United Healthcare. So you're welcome to go to that link, take a look at it, and see if that plan feels right for you and your family. I know some students will swap to that from a family plan. Others that might not have the insurance coverage that cover certain areas in that plan also might choose to be able to do it. But take a review of that and compare and contrast that with what it is you have. And if it turns out that this one's better, then certainly you can sign up there. We have someone at Habif Health and Wellness who can answer most of your questions about that. If they're unable to, they can certainly direct you to someone in United Healthcare that can answer the rest of those. And all that information is contained on that website that I just posted.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. Mark, if students or families have questions about how to reach student groups or organizations or offices that are in your realm, how would you direct them? What's the best way to get more information?
I think it depends on what they're looking for. So we have so much on our campus to offer. They should really look to Campus Life, and they can search through all the different student orgs that are available there. But in our office, they can also contact our office either directly, or they can also follow us on Instagram and see all the things that we have going on there. Look on our website as well.
Fantastic. I see some questions coming in about pre-health and pre-med or pre-health, pre-veterinary advising tracks. One great resource I definitely encourage students and families to check out is our pre-health website, where you can access more information, some of which Catherine mentioned earlier this afternoon, but more information about different coursework, advising, different resources available to students regardless of anticipated or intended major or division. Lots of ways that we support pre-professional and pre-graduate advising at the university, including things like pre-law, for example. So many different resources available to students during their time, and alumni once they're graduated. So many different ways that we help students on their pathways to their intended careers and success that they're looking for. All right, we have about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to ask our panelists to think of anything else that they want to share with our students and families before we have to wrap up. I'll just reiterate on behalf of the Office of Admissions and Student Financial Services, we are here to help. So in the next coming weeks and months, if you have questions or need assistance, please do not ever hesitate to reach out to us. We're always happy to help and or provide guidance or point you in the right direction if that's what you need. On that note, I'm going to turn over. We'll go in the same order as our introductions. Catherine, any words of wisdom or advice you would leave with our great families here this evening?
To echo first that we're so excited to have you join the WashU family. And, I can see in the chat, I think a lot of people have questions thinking they need to be doing things today. And I want to reassure you that you and your student do not have any items they need to do today, other than if they are committing to WashU to pay that deposit and to sign up for housing. Other than that, there's nothing that needs to be done in the month of April. And so for you and your student to enjoy the celebratory time as they're, thinking about where is the best place for them to go to college and as they end their high school career. But there are no to-do items to do.
Thank you for elevating that. I appreciate that. Yes, please enjoy this time. You're on the right track, I promise. On that note, Kawana, what would you share with our visitors today?
Well, first and foremost, congratulations again. We are so excited to welcome you home in residential life. And it's an amazing, amazing campus and community. And I have been saying I would not want to work at any other place during a global pandemic than WashU. We've extended ourselves and provided so much community and really healing in a difficult time. And so as you all join our community, know that you are bringing so much joy and just hope for the future. And we're excited to welcome you home. So congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you in August.
Thanks, Kawana. Kirk.
I just echo what Kawana said. This is a university full of people who really care about making your students experience the best that we can and work really hard to be able to do that.
For sure. And Mark.
Congratulations. What an awesome opportunity to be a part of our university and this family. And when we say that, it really does it really means family. I mean, the connections that you will make here and the way in which I've seen both our students here and the alumni I've worked with before I even worked at WashU, the connection that you will build here will last a lifetime and lead you to places you will have never imagined you would go. I am excited to meet your students and meet you, those of you that will come through, and welcome you to the CDI and to the duck, as you will. Maybe I'll be wearing my tie.
Wonderful. Well, yes, I will just echo what everyone said. We cannot wait to have your young person on our campus. We can't wait to see them this fall in St. Louis at WashU. Know that we're here to answer any questions you have. If your student is still deciding their plans for next year, know that our deposit deadline is May 3rd, so keep that on your calendar. But know that all of our community is thrilled to welcome you and your young person to the WashU community. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your evening.